Welcome. Welcome everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. I don't think that makes my voice louder. I think it makes the Zoom hear me, but welcome. This is pretty awesome, this turnout. You know, a lot of places don't get this kind of support. The police chief wants to talk and you guys come, that's great. So thanks for being here. On that note, Coffee with a Cop every first Wednesday of every month at 8:30. So it's be good to see this big of a group there too. So yeah, we'd love to see you guys out there. No, thanks for coming. We have a kind of a hard stop at 1, so I want to get going. As you know, the South American theft group has been burglarizing residents across the country. We recently got some intel mid to late December that they're in Arizona. And so with that intel, we started looking up some things, some past cases. And in January, so I'll give you, in January 2024 compared to January 2023, we've had 5 more burglaries than we did the year before. And we do believe some of these are tied to them. But having said that, it's kind of hard because the MO is breaking a window in the master bedroom, close to washes, golf courses, and things like that. And that's, you know, breaking windows to enter is as old as can be for burglarizing, right? So it's kind of hard to sometimes to be specific on which ones are which, whether it's somebody else. You know, we had the rock burglary years ago, and he did the same thing. We got arrested a couple years ago, Carl Stevens, same kind of MO. But we do believe they've been in Paradise Valley as well as our surrounding agencies. So due to that, we started looking at cases, and we believe we could potentially, again, not hard facts, 10 to 15 in Paradise Valley over the last 6 months. So with that information, we started doing extra patrols, special details. I'm really proud of the way our teams handled this. Because it's hitting all over the valley. And what we decided to do is we could be spinning our wheels. So let's have a meeting. Let's host a meeting. So we actually hosted 2, but our first one was a couple of weeks ago. And we got all the valley agencies around to come and share info, share intel, collaborate on what they know, what they have. And it was very successful. We had it here at our PD. FBI agents were in there as well. Police departments in other parts of the country zoomed in because they've already been hit and experienced this. So now they're sharing intel with us. So it's a great event, and I'm really proud of our team for that. Our team's kind of leading the way. Our criminal investigations unit have been key in this and sharing information with other agencies. Our crime analyst, she's going to be mad at me, but Andrea Ford has done great work. She regularly helps other case departments with their cases because she's so good. She's also helping with this current trend and providing information to other crime analysts. It says police chief right there. That's how good she is. She's sitting in that seat there. Can we do that? So between the officers, they're working a lot of hours right now, away from their families. And the criminal investigation unit, Andrea's up at 1 a.m. looking up intel. Can we do that? Can we give them a round of applause for their work? So since this came in, we've done a lot of details. We've been police patrol. We've done surveillance details. I've personally been out there myself. The team's been working a lot of hours. And in addition to that, we've, you know, we try to get the word out in different ways. Social media posts, council meetings, the Coffee with a Cop. I know the town manager's here, Andrew Ching. He's put some information out about this the last few weeks. You know, we have HOA forums that we have contacts with, hotel security groups, all different ways. We've gone to a few HOA meetings specifically about this, but we are still getting information, questions, some misinformation, rumors. So I was like, well, let's just have a big town-wide meeting. I know these residents are great and they're going to come. And sure enough, he did. And last check, there was over 30 on Zoom. So this is great, guys. We really appreciate that support. So yeah, so that's what this meeting's about, information sharing. I'll have the criminal investigations unit go over some of the information for you that we can share without compromising any investigations. And then at the end, if there's some additional questions you have, feel free to ask, and we'll go from there. But we do, I knew we need to do it in here and not the station because I knew we'd get a big group. So they're gonna come back from lunch about 1 or so. So we need to have a hard stop at that time. So again, thanks for being here. This is phenomenal, and it just really proves the point of our support we get. So I appreciate that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sergeant Helsher. He's gonna go over some of the things that you can be on the lookout for. And then we'll also, after that, we'll have our crime prevention officer provide you some tips and tricks to stay safe.
Let me introduce myself. My name's Derek Helsher. I'm the sergeant in our criminal investigations unit. I've been an officer here for about 10 years now. Prior to that, I was an officer outside of St. Louis, Missouri, on the east side in Illinois for 8 years. So I got about 18 years experience. Right now I'm leading a team of 4 detectives and then myself. A little bit. Make sure everyone can hear you. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Thank you. And the crime analyst is also in my team. So South American theft groups, this is what we're here to talk about. And I feel like we'd be doing you a disservice if we don't do a little background on. So these are the things we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about who and what we're talking about. So a little background on the subject, what the police department is doing now to combat this new trend. And then we're going to bring in our community service officer, Fan, to talk about kind of how we can elicit some help from the community and what you guys can do to help yourselves. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today, we went over that. Sorry, it's a little finicky. So there are some things we're not going to be able to discuss. Specifics of past incidents we don't want to talk about. Investigative techniques and other information we believe might hinder our ongoing or future investigations. Now, the reason for this is obviously you guys need some information. We want to provide that to you to be able to keep you guys safe and to help us catch these people. But also there's some information that if we provided that to the public and it would get out in the publications and things like that, because the people we're talking about, they are constantly watching the news and things like that. So they can change their behaviors, which will make it a lot more difficult for us and our other partners in the valley to try to apprehend these people. So I ask you to be patient with me. I'm gonna give you as much as I can, but there are gonna be some limitations that we're gonna have. And then questions, this is a town hall forum, so I wanna encourage questions. But like the chief said, because we got the hard stop, if you can maybe just make a mental note or write them down and we'll do all of them at the end. That way we get about like a 20-minute presentation just to get through it. And then we'll have plenty of time for everybody's questions. So when we're talking about these South American theft groups, this is just a general term for transnational organized crime groups, okay? This is not a new thing. It is for maybe the Phoenix area, but these types of things have been happening for the past decades in bigger cities like LA and New York City. They've been dealing with these types of things. So more recently, you might hear the terms like Chilean national crime groups or crime tourists. Those are synonymous with these, and we'll get into a little bit of what we're talking about with that too. But overall, not a new concept, but new to the Phoenix region. So we did a little background on this with help from our partners in Scottsdale. We reached out to a subject matter expert. He's an FBI special agent by the name of Ivan Romo, and he works out of the Los Angeles division, okay? He's been dealing with this type of transnational organized crime for 20 years. And he gave us a little bit of background on some of it. So while he's working these cases, he noticed in around the 2017, 2018 time period, there was an escalation in these specifically Chilean nationals coming over here to the United States and committing some of these crimes. Coincidentally, at that time, Chile was recently added to what this is, this ESTA program, and we'll get into kind of what that is here. So I wasn't aware of this either at the time we were starting to look into these things. So this is some education for me too, but this is kind of a background of what the ESTA program is. It's an automated system that basically determines the eligibility of visitors to travel to the United States without a visa. It's also known as like a visa waiver program. So you go online to the Customs and Border Patrol website, you just fill out an online form, and you're either approved or not approved, and you can fly right into the United States. Now, once they get into the United States, these people who are involved in these South American theft groups are obtaining fake identities. They typically will have criminal histories back in the countries where they come from. And then they'll ship the items that they're stealing back to either their home countries or their like basically base of business. A lot of times for us, it's going to be LA, mostly on the West Coast out here, but New York, it's going to be over there as well. And then recently we've discovered too, with meeting with the FBI, that it seems that a lot of these people are coming over legitimately and then either getting deported or whatnot, but then there's no record of them coming back again. So they're obviously entering illegally somehow. So one thing that's interesting about these groups too, like on face value, it would seem like they're very similar to drug cartels, but it's actually a little bit different. They're almost like a terrorist thing. When you talk about lone wolves and single cells. So each one of these groups is its own cell. So they have been known to like communicate between cells, but unlike drug cartels, there's no like Chapo Guzman at the top, giving orders to his lieutenants who then tell the worker bees to go out and do these things. It's basically just a bunch of combined groups that go out and pillage these nice neighborhoods. In fact, based on our intelligence, they'll arrest a couple people from one group, and then the remainder people from that group will end up getting involved with another group. So there is some loose communication and loose connection between the two, but it's not like a big organized cartel like we see in the drug world. But it has been pretty active here recently too within the entire United States. Just in the last few weeks, we've seen activity in Florida, Maryland, Michigan, Texas, Delaware, Ohio, California, Arizona, and it kind of goes on. All my members are on like a email sharing list that we get intel from other agencies around the country, and it's been very active. So for some reason, it's just blown up. Here are some headlines recently. You'll notice that it's there's one from Indiana on here, Detroit area, Ohio, so San Diego. So like I said, it's several different groups working around the country, and they'll stay in one spot and then they'll travel. They'll stay in one spot and they'll travel. So they're constantly moving around. So when they're looking at houses and looking at the things that they are interested in, mainly it's just cash, jewelry, and easy to move items. They typically have been seen to avoid firearms because they don't want anything that can be traced back to anybody. These groups have also been known to commit commercial burglaries, organized thefts, and vehicle burglaries. Scottsdale, a couple of years back, had a group that they arrested doing commercial burglaries. They would break into the roofs of businesses and go down and get in their safes and whatnot, but it was a group of Chileans. So they're also likely to commit vehicle burgs like around the trailheads. I don't know if you guys are hikers, but you want to use precautions there as well. So if you're going up the mountain, you know, keep your valuables out of sight, lock your doors. The intel we're getting for the vehicle burglars is that they likely won't break the windows. They're looking just to get something easy. And then they'll leave the cash in the wallets and just take the credit card, like one credit card out of your wallet and go use it to buy a bunch of gift cards. That's kind of the MO for the vehicle burglars. Now, we haven't seen any of that here. But we don't really have Scottsdale or Phoenix is mostly in charge of all of that parking down there. So by Echo Canyon and Cholla Trail now. So we don't get a lot of those reports, but from talking to my counterparts in Phoenix, it doesn't sound like they've had those issues. But that's something to kind of keep an eye on as well. So we will keep you updated. Specifically to Paradise Valley's cases. So late 2023 is when we noticed kind of an uptick. And it was kind of the same throughout the valley. Scottsdale was starting to get the same traction at this point. And like the chief said, once we started to learn about these and figure out the MO and things like that, we were able to go back. And then at this point, like you said, we can possibly attribute 10 to 15 burglaries in the past 6 months. So it gets a little wonky because like you said, this is not anything new. People have been smashing windows and committing burglaries in this town for a while, and everybody remembers the rock burglar. I heard about these stories when I got hired here 10 years ago. So there's other different things that we're looking at too that kind of make them unique. But we're not against the fact that there could be somebody else doing these things. I mean, we can't rule that out either. So we're taking the precautions and the necessary steps to make sure we're trying to investigate each case separately instead of lumping them all in and just figuring that they're going to be connected, because sometimes they aren't. I will tell you a story from investigating. I was here when we investigated this Carl Stevens character. And when they arrested him and they seized quite a bit of property from a storage unit he had, one of the things was a set of wings from a stewardess who lived in town. And she had reported that crime during the rock burglar case. So that's why we don't want to automatically assume that we're dealing with the same people all the time. It could be somebody else. And like we said, these groups are targeting similar neighborhoods to this throughout the valley. I got some contacts in Mesa. I know that they've had a couple incidents down there. Scottsdale with the DC Ranch area has been hit pretty hard recently, and then pushing out further to the east towards Fountain Hills. Peoria a couple weeks ago had a bad night on a Saturday night when we were actually all out trying to curb some of this behavior. I think they had like 3 burglaries and 4 other attempts that we think are attributed to these people. So just to kind of quell some fears a little bit, this is some comparison that I did. On the left, you'll see last year's in January to our, I did this to the 12th because that's when I prepared it. And then these are the burglaries this year on the right from the 1st to the 12th. So you can see a little bit of an uptick, and then obviously there's a couple more around the valley. These are still nicer neighborhoods. And then just to put in a little bit more perspective, this, again, it's PV on the left and then our surrounding valley. So we're still doing pretty good. I give a lot of credit to our patrol guys. They're very active at night. Our detectives do a great job of following up on these crimes once they happen. But also we live in a very safe place. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea that you know, we're taking this seriously, obviously, but it's nothing to the effect that other agencies are having. So So when we talk about their MO, or their method of operation, and for the Latin people, if you're Catholic and whatnot, this modus operandi is what we call it. Suspects are targeting homes along golf courses, green belts, desert wash areas. These are our main areas of focus when we're talking about this group. Okay, they pride themselves on hiding in plain sight, you know. Typically, they're just hiking along the golf course or along the wash area, and they'll scout out. We had one case where we know they were out of the car for probably 45 minutes based on going back and doing our investigation. So if you see people wandering around in places where people normally wouldn't be, and they have, you know, they're dressed in dark clothes and whatnot, that's when we want you to call. And don't feel bad, you're not gonna bother anybody. I know that's kind of an apprehension sometimes, that they don't wanna be bothering people, or they don't wanna look foolish or whatnot. If you think it's weird, call us. We'll go out there and determine that. I mean, we're getting paid to do this, you know, like, don't have to worry about hurting our feelings. And better be nothing or kids messing around than, you know, this. And I will say that the number one way to catch these people is early detection. So if somebody sees something and calls us, we're able to get on them, because by the time they break into somebody's house, it's gonna be too late, because by the time the alarm goes off and we get the call at the police department and get there, these guys act so fast, we just can't get on them. And that's not just this department, that's Phoenix, Scottsdale, large police departments that have every resource possible. They can't do this. They're gonna enter through rear windows normally, or the Arcadia door in the back master bed or bathroom area, because they have a specific target that they're looking for. They know people keep their valuables in the master closets, master bedroom, master bathroom. We have had a couple where they've had safes taken out. So if you have a small safe, make sure you're bolting it down or it's secured. But they do quickly enter before the police get, like I said, they're in and out before the police can get there. So most all of these that we're talking about that we think we can associate with them, they're committing these crimes under the cover of nightfall. So the time frame can get a little weird, but it's always dark. And that helps them with their we joke around, we call them ninjas, because you can't tell who these people are. They have masks. You know, they have their hoods up, they're covered all the way down. So if they have tattoos, you can't see them. Almost impossible to identify. But one way we are trying to identify them is through, like if they do use credit cards or something like that out of stolen cars or whatnot, that is a great way to do it. And then help from our partners around the country. So a couple of our success stories came out of Ohio, I believe, where they made some arrests on these people. And then it's the people like my group here that follow up on the information they have. When they're caught, they take all that stuff and they go through it. They were able to find actually one of our victims' jewelry, because they found a shipping receipt and intercepted a package that was going back to LA, and it had one of our victims' jewelry in it from one of our cases. So that's how you kind of got to get lucky a little bit, but also it's a lot of teamwork too. When you talk about working through multi-agencies not only across the state, that's difficult enough, but when you get across the country, it becomes entirely a different story. So but to quell more concerns, people in these groups, based on all of our intel, they appear to avoid any confrontation. So they will still go into a house if the alarm goes off. However, it looks like they try to avoid it if people are home. They will try to avoid houses that where they know people are home. on one of our recent ones, and there was a Scottsdale case too that was weird. We actually saw them outside throwing rocks at the house to try to, and when I say rocks, I mean like good sized rocks that would, you would hear it if you were inside to try to elicit some sort of response from the homeowners, but they were in the basement watching movies, so they didn't hear it. But typically they'll be in and out, like I said, and they don't want to be caught, so they're gonna avoid the confrontation. So we are working along with the FBI and multiple other agencies. And when I say multiple other agencies, when we put this meeting together on the 31st of last month, I basically reached out to most of the East Valley. Because at that point, that's where we knew these people were targeting. By the time we had the meeting, we had several agencies from like Texas, Indiana, Ohio, and then there was one West Valley agency that came. And that detective basically kind of had the information that unraveled a bunch of cases for everybody. They did a great job on it. They brought it together, and then at that point, this is when Peoria started getting involved. So it's something that's now encompassed this entire Phoenix Valley. It's not just relegated to like one small area. So if it makes you feel any better, there's a lot of people working towards a common goal on this. I mean, we want to catch these people as much as you do. So we did identify some other good news. We did identify several suspects in one of our earlier cases. There was a case, was it in September or November, the case that you have? Okay. So we have all those suspects identified at this point. Now we're just working up to see if we can develop a case on them. Detective Toporek just submitted a case, I think it was a Desert Fairways address today, where they were burglarized, and we had a flashlight left behind while the guy's DNA was on it. And he was later caught in California doing the same thing. So we're hoping to get some criminal charges on that guy for that. And then more recently, there was a case on the 19th of January. We have all those people, I believe, identified on that one as well, and we're trying to get to a point where we can submit it for charging. So we're kind of behind the gun all the time with these people. And there's a lot of work on the back end that we have to do. But they're doing fantastic work. It's not easy. Like I said, it's a lot of working with multiple agencies who they have a little bit of information, we have a little bit of information. And then, like I said, the FBI has gotten involved. I will put an asterisk on that. The FBI is involved. They are not going to be looking to prosecute these people federally. We've been in several meetings with them, and for some reason this is not an attractive case to them. But they have loaned us some resources, so we are taking advantage of that. But as far as actually doing the investigative work, that's not going to be led by the federal government, at least not by the FBI. So I don't want anybody to get misinformed or whatnot. This is a picture of our meeting on the 31st. You can see we had, like I said, every agency from the East Valley was there with their crime analysts. DPS was involved. They're helping out as well. And I know a lot of you guys have friends in Scottsdale and Phoenix nearby. So I know Phoenix, I work really well with their property sergeants as well. In fact, we have a meeting Thursday. But they're dealing with the same thing. We're really trying to figure out how we can, instead of always be behind them, to get in front of these people. So it's not just, don't feel like it's just this department. We have a big group that's trying to help out and do this together. So these are some of the obstacles we're dealing with, and this is what makes it hard, okay? So like I said, all these, they're like separate cells, right? So we have a group in September that come in, they do a couple crimes, they're gone. They get caught out in Ohio. And then we have another group that comes in and they do a couple crimes and we think we know a little bit about them and then they're gone. And then we have these people that come in December and January and then they leave. So, and these are all different people. These aren't the same people. These are different groups. So you're pouring a lot of resources into trying to just identify them. And then the next group's there and we're trying to catch them, right? So it's, you're constantly behind the gun, you know? We know they may travel back and forth between here and Colorado. I mean, it is pretty close to LA. You can drive there in a day. So we don't have the intel on this, but I wouldn't put it past the fact that they would just come out here and commit the burglary and go home. We've seen that with other groups that we've had. And I wouldn't put it past this group as well. They're rarely able to be identified by surveillance. So that's where we need our patrol guys to get out there and stop people and identify them on the road. So that's what we've been doing. Some of the larger cities, I mean, Phoenix, they are lucky if you can get somebody to your house in half an hour if you get your house broken into. So they don't have time to do that kind of stuff. So we're really working hard on trying to get intel on these people and identify them. And there's different ways we can do that as well. But that's the kind of things that we don't really want to get into because then they'll change what they're doing and then it'll make it even harder for us. One other thing that makes it hard to catch them, because you would think the law of averages would catch up to them and like, well, if they do so many burglaries, there's going to be a cop right next door to them at some point, right? Well, because there is such a delay in your alarm reporting and it's nobody's fault, but basically the alarm company, they get the alarm, they have to find out where it's at, and then they don't call the police immediately, they call the homeowner, right? They want to try to make sure they're not going to get the false alarm. So they call you, and then if they don't get a hold of you, then they call the police. So right there, we're talking like 5 minutes or so. Then they call dispatch, and by the time it's dispatched and get out. So we're talking like 7 to 10 minutes by the time we even know about it, if there's an alarm sometimes. Now the town does have the alarm system where you can hook straight up to it, which should alleviate some of that distance. I don't know, you know, I'm not an expert on it, so I don't know how, but that is something that we're dealing with as well. So by the time we get notified and get to the location, they're already in and out because that's how fast they are. Typically they're just grabbing it and going. They're not spending a lot of time in there. Now I will say, if they know for sure that nobody's home, they may spend a little more time in there. Or they know that there's no alarm or something like that. But anytime that we've dealt with it where there's an alarm activation or something like that, they're in and out so fast. It's just impossible to catch up with them. And I think it was a couple weeks ago, Scottsdale had one and they were being proactive and they had a police officer pretty close to where it happened and they still didn't catch him just because it's that quick. So.
On that note, if you guys find out what number the alarm company will call you on, put it in your phone so you don't think, oh, it's a sales call and you don't answer, right? Then they're gonna try again, or they're gonna try another phone, and by then they've tried 3 or 4 times before they even call us. So if you can put the phone number in your phone and know that, oh, that's my alarm, and make sure you answer that, so.
Well, that's a great tip. Thank you. At this point, I'm gonna see if Officer Jimmy Fan will come up here and he's gonna kind of go over some things that you guys can do and help us and whatnot. And then, I mean, I'm gonna be here, we're gonna field your questions, so.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Officer Jimmy Fan. I'm a community resource officer here for the Paradise Valley Police Department. I'll kind of keep this kind of short and sweet. That way we can get to questions too. But a couple of safety tips that we have is to set your alarms when you're either home or away, especially when you're going to sleep, right? or just at home during dinner time. If you're not gonna go in and out of your doors, just set that. That way it just alerts you while you're inside the house because you're a different wing of your house. Ensure all your entry points are locked. 9 o'clock walk is what we've been preaching for years. Is at 9 o'clock before you retire for the night. Just walk around your property and check all your doors, because sometimes we go through doors that it's not our usual routine and we forget to lock that, and we're gonna assume it's all locked, and that will prevent, that's another obstacle for them to try to get in, because you're trying to, if you're creating more time, these guys, the time is not on their side. They're trying to do something quick. So if you create more time and alerting that, that should hopefully deter. Make sure your exterior lighting is in operation. Just look around if you have any lights around your property. Also, if you have anything around on your landscape pointing, as long as within town code, just make sure it's shielding from other houses, but it lights that area up and you see lighting from your house or from when you're sitting somewhere. If you see movement in the back, just be more aware, hey, there's something back there. Their motion lighting is illuminating. And of course, as neighbors, if you see something, say something. If something doesn't look like normal to your neighborhood, you know your neighborhood better than anybody else, right? Who's visiting, just give us a call. And if you do see motion on your video cameras afterwards, you're reviewing anything or something like that, you can actually just submit that to us through our webpage afterwards if that didn't happen during that time. But if it's happening then, just give us a call. We'll come out and check it. There's no worries. I know a lot of apprehension can happen at times, but that's what we're here for. We like to check on that for you. And last but not least, sign up for notifications through our paradisevalleypd.org at the website there. It's a quick sign up. Any email notifications, PSAs, I push that out. And we'll have this at the door. This is keep your home safe and secure. This is a card that we'll pass out. Has my contact information in the back where I can go out and do a home security review for you. And if I can't do it, one of our officers will. We just schedule a time. Just reach out to me. We'll schedule a time and have somebody come out for that. But yeah, those are my safety tips. Yeah.
Thanks, Jimmy. With that being said, so some of our intel that we got from California recently is that audible alarms do make a difference. So if you have an audible alarm, we want to make sure that's on. There have been several instances where they will just leave, depending on which group. Like I said, every group is different, so they act a little different. So a lot of these guys in some of these groups will, if they break the window and they hear the alarm go off, they'll just go then. So that's an option for you if you don't have that and you'd like to add that to your alarm system. So this is our contact information. Again, feel free to take a picture of it. I'm always happy to answer any questions, whatnot. Jimmy's available every day too. And you can email or call, no big deal.
And one last thing before we go to questions. You can also sign up for vacation watches. If you're gonna be out of town for any duration, just just go to our webpage, sign up for it. That allows that tells an officer, hey, we don't announce that over the radio or anything like that we're doing a check, but we'll go out on your property and we'll check it and make sure there's nothing amiss. And but also be aware when you do come back before your time, whatever slot you have, let us know. There are many times where I've come back, somebody had a layover unexpectedly, and I would do a knock and talk at 3 a.m. So yeah, the car's not supposed to be there. I will knock and talk that house. So.
All right, thanks, man. So with that, we'll open it up to questions and I will try to answer them as best I can. We'll try to go from this way to this way. Go ahead, sir. So no, we have no reports that any of these have been violent. Like I said, they want to avoid confrontation. So it seems like they will retreat as soon as they see anybody or they have any contact with like a homeowner or whatnot.
Yeah, and they've actually passed, they've not been known to carry weapons, and they've actually passed up weapons. We had one where they broke a window, hurt people.
Okay, we'll do. Okay, so the question he's asking is, is there a concern for people either driving into gated communities or if these people are coming over the wall? So we have no intel that says they're going into the gated community, like through the gate. They're gonna avoid that. So if they do hit a home that's inside a gated community, it's gonna be over the wall. And that's typically where you're gonna back up to a golf course or a wash or something like that, so. From what, so I think I've only had one case. I'm so sorry. She asked if dogs are a deterrent. And I think there was one case where there was a gal that had a Malinois in the house and it did scare them away. Now whether that, here's the thing too, we don't know if it was them. Because they're not, again, it could have been some other body breaking in, but I would say that that's not gonna hurt you, you know? That's a great question. So some of the intel that we have on that, it just seems to be random. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just new at this. Bear with me. So she asked how they're being selected or how the victims are being selected. And we don't have a great answer for that, unfortunately. A lot of it looks like maybe Google searches, just random stuff like they're searching for you know, expensive houses in Phoenix, I think was one. So let's go over here. We'll kind of keep it. So anything you get is going to be worthwhile. Now, what she asked was, we're going to repeat the question. She asked, is there something you put over the windows to help? And is it worth getting, or like a Ring doorbell or something like that? So there is film that you can get to go over your window that will make it really hard to break and get in. If anything, it will slow them down immensely. So I would say that's a great suggestion. And it's probably not cheap. So maybe just putting it on like your master bedroom windows and any windows going into the master bathroom, something like that would be my suggestion. And the Ring doorbell, anything that you have is gonna help. I don't know of any information that they were able to erase anything or anything like that. So that's a little weird, but any additional information that we can get, because they may not even know it's there. So I'd say yes. That's all right. So he asked if there's a typical vehicle they're using, and the broad answer is no. I mean, they've used sedans, they've used SUVs, it's all over the park. Some of them are rentals, some of them are owned. They're just everything. I can say they probably haven't, well, they've used just about every vehicle that there is, yes. No, yes, no, she asked if they're using the white van. They're not using the white van, like the stereotypical white van. In the back. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so she's asking if this is it's gonna be an ongoing issue because it's not a centralized group. And I would say that for the time being, until we can get everybody on board and work together effectively, it's probably gonna be something we're gonna have to be cognizant of. And that just comes from being aware of your surroundings and yeah, unfortunately. Good.
If, for example, perimeter security, the current rules are the wall is 6 foot high in PD. Can the town start looking at decorative spikes, for example, because ultimately security is our responsibility. We need the town's assistance.
So the gentleman was making a statement about the lack of the ability to basically add on to the wall, because there's a limit to how tall you can have your wall here in Paradise Valley. And I would say, unfortunately, that's out of my control, but I wouldn't disagree with you there. And I think there's, you know, an avenue to bring that up. And I would encourage that, you know, through the building.
Is there any evidence that the video surveillance on your property cameras externally are determined?
So he asked if there's any evidence that the video surveillance, like if you haven't known that it's a deterrent, and I would say no, is no, based on what we know. It's not a deterrent. That doesn't mean it can't help us catch them, but it's not gonna keep them out. In the middle there? Hmm. So, yes, it is a little weird. So honestly, the county is, like, the sheriff's department is in charge of that area. And I am aware of the burglaries. I've been talking to their sergeant over there too. He's been involved in some of this stuff, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. It's either, like, I would like to tell you, you could call us, and we do respond in there for things, because the county will, half the time their deputies aren't close to us because Maricopa County is so big. You know, they're out in Fountain Hills or whatnot, so we do go in and help them. But as far as like fielding calls and whatnot, that's gonna be something, oh, above my,
Yeah, typically, it's Maricopa County question. That's, but a lot of times, we'll go and help them, because we're fast. And, yeah, Maricopa County is primary.
right here. So she's asking, you know, we made the comment that we had like 10 to 15 burglaries within the last 6 months that we can attribute to them, and she's wondering, it looks like we've had 10 to 15 just in December or in January and February, December, January. So that's the difference, is what we can basically by their MO attribute or possibly attribute to this group, and how many we've actually had. So yes, there's probably been more burglaries than 10 to 15 in the last 6 months, but those are the ones we know, like, we're comfortable saying it's probably these groups. Oh, I think we were just basing that on the recent concern, like that's seems to be the concern around the East Valley, that this is the new thing. So that's what we geared it towards. It shouldn't. I totally agree. It's, I mean, we treat them all kind of the same, honestly. So, but we want to keep people informed too about the new trends going on. We'll do way in the back.
So on the subject of the MO, interested in how vehicles fit into that. You mentioned that the burglaries along Modus and golf course. So what do? Do they break into the house and then they jack off to a vehicle, or is the vehicle very close, or you could?
Yeah, so without getting into too much detail, because this kind of skirts on one of the things we just don't really want to get out there, and things that we know how they behave. But yeah, typically they'll break in, leave, and we've seen them running away. So they're running to a point to beat the car, essentially. All right, we'll come back over here.
caution everybody. Not to put where they are. Because if it's their house, like if somebody wants to say, take 700 pounds. So somebody has to know there. So I'm just saying, to, be careful when you're out, follow home. Just keep very far, the other stuff. We all just need to really. What's going on?
That's a great point. And if, for those of you who didn't hear that, she's just bringing up the fact that there are people out there that will case the area and they will kind of follow people back from the banks and things like that. Now, we haven't had anything like that recently. We have had some other things that they call jugging, that is a whole different group of people. But they will follow people from the bank to their car, and then people will leave the money in the car and they'll break into the car and steal the money. But that's kind of separate from what we're talking about, and we haven't had any of those. I think we had one case within the last 8 months of that, but that actually was a big thing here recently in the valley. Good.
So what can we do to be partial when they break in or when anyone breaks in? Knowing they're not armed, can't shoot them. So do we just sit back and let them take?
Okay, so this is I'll give you the PC answer for this. So I would say the number one thing you want to do is call the police. No. So she's asking what we can do because we know they're unarmed and we can't use force against them or whatnot when they break in. And I would say, well, we want you to call the police, but also you don't know that they're not armed. So I know if it was my family, what I would do, like you take the precautions that you feel at the time. They do have the castle doctrine here in Arizona. Now, I'm not telling anybody to go out and shoot anybody, but also if somebody breaks in your home in the middle of the night and you're home, I mean, I would fear for my life. I don't know, like, so you do what you're comfortable with. I'm not saying that. No. Like, let's be informed.
Yeah, David, and you got the gun, and that does make a difference, so yeah, it's really loud, don't use that.
Pretty. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thanks. Go ahead. So the gentleman's asking about any issues with Uber drivers, and we have not. That's not been a thing with any of our investigations, so that should be alleviate some of that right here. So we've had 3 or so she's asking more information about the concerns that the FBI are not willing to be like all in on this basically. And my team and some other members of the community are the like Scottsdale PD, Phoenix, we're in meetings with them. We just had another meeting with them yesterday, and they are giving us some resources, but there are resources that we kind of already have. The resources that we need, they're basically saying that it's not feasible as far as they're concerned. I mean, we're asking for like some manpower help. These people go from state to state, so that's the biggest concern. Like, we can't go follow them around, obviously, from Arizona to wherever they're going. And it makes it pretty compelling case that the FBI could give us a hand and at least go surveil them or do something. And that is not happening from what I'm understood. So let's go over here in the corner. I'm so sorry. So she's asking how involved Homeland Security is in this investigation too. So Homeland is not really involved as well. They have a couple agents that we've talked to about the issue. But it seems that the federal partners are limited, one, by the statutes they can prosecute. And there has to be certain criteria that they meet. Now, I would argue though, as well, that they can also bring cases to the local county attorney. And I will say the county attorney's office has been great. They've been on board. They know that this is an issue and they're gonna be proactive with it. But as far as their federal partners, I'm just a little let down at this point.
Just for clarification, I think you said coming in illegally. They're actually coming in legally.
It's probably both, honestly. It's a little of both
Yeah,
from the
so,
new intel that we have yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, so they can, with that program, they can come right in. And that's a problem. And we have escalated that with the US House of, I had a meeting on Monday, my concerns about that, and that needs to change, so.
Right here.
Are most of them coming in after dark? Or are the daylight burglaries as well?
So this gentleman's asking if it's all after dark or if there's daylight. All of ours that we suspect they're involved in have been during the nighttime hours or like under darkness, basically. It's not light out.
Sometimes. Ours are, it's a lot.
Okay, so she's asking whether she should call in all the time for these suspicious cars or people that may just pull over and wait there for a long time. And I would say anytime that you feel like this is weird, call us and let us determine. Like, that would be a great, tool to try to catch these people early. If there's somebody sitting in a car, it could be like the getaway car or whatnot. We just don't know. And they might be just having a phone call conversation and doing the right thing and pulling over instead of driving all over the road, but you never know.
You want us to call 911 or the 911?
She's asking if we should call 911 or the non-emergency, and that's a great question. I would say call the non-emergency number for that particular thing if you have it available, just because it will alleviate, the volume on our 911 line. But if for some reason, PV is a pretty tight community and the 911, we're lucky because our 911 goes straight to our own dispatch. Nobody's gonna get in trouble for dialing 911 if you can't look up, if you can't find the number and like they're getting ready to leave or whatnot, just call us. That's all like. Nobody's gonna get in trouble for that.
Yeah, and the time frame of them to answer 911 versus non-emergency, it's the same. The only difference would be 911 would supersede something, but other than that, it's about the same response time.
In the back.
Yeah, question, in terms of, these guys have been operating in the States for a while now. Do we have any estimate of how many gangs are operating currently in this area and how many
He's asking if we know how many people are operating in this area now or how many gangs there are, crews, I'm guessing. It would be a total guess because I can't tell you. I mean, I know we have several different ones since we've gone back to like November or September, but that's it. Like I don't know currently. I honestly wouldn't say that many. But I don't know. I can't tell you like how many groups. Okay, she asked how many police officers we have here in our town, total and per shift. So total, I think we have 35 sworn now is our number. And per shift, typically we would have 6 on each shift. And we're trying to fill some vacancies, so there may be a couple that don't quite get to 6 or whatnot. But we have them. No, so we don't ride 2 cars. This is not like we got away from the 1 Adam 12 days a long time ago. It's just one of those things, like the resources, trying to get people to do this job anymore is hard. But everyone's in their own car. I will say that we have a minimum staffing level. There's always 4 patrolmen out. That includes their sergeant. And then we have an on-call detective, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week too. Mhm. So she's wondering how she can get feedback on if they go out, if she makes a report and that our officers go out and follow up on it. So I would say the expectation is they should still be doing that. And if not, to let us know so we can correct it. Yes. But the dispatcher also usually, they will ask that if you want to call back or not. Okay. I would tell you to say yes, and if it doesn't happen, please let us know, because that's not the way it should be.
So we got time for one more question. The town employees let us overtake their place. But coffee with the cops, right? Every Wednesday, first Wednesday of every month, but we do one more and then we gotta let these guys get back to work.
I'll do here and I believe I believe our community service officer was gonna do that. So I don't know if he might have stepped out, but we'll make sure that gets taken care of. And then does somebody else have a question? Go ahead. So we don't really have a good average. We do have. Here's one of these things we don't want it to get out, okay? Because if we say it and they put that out in the newspaper or the news puts that on, and then they're like, okay, well, we'll just change that kind of thing. So we do have an idea, like we know, but it's not something that's, gonna help anybody. Go ahead. So she's asking if they've hired private security in their HOA and if it's beneficial. I would say that it's not gonna hurt. That's an extra set of eyes out there that's gonna be able to look out for things. Anything we can do extra is gonna help try to solve this issue. And the more we make it uncomfortable for these people to be here and do these types of things, maybe they'll move on to somewhere else. Okay?
So
Appreciate it.
thank you guys for coming. I want to reiterate that I know we talked a little bit about the FBI, they are helping, but we also are working with them. As I said, my meeting Monday about the concerns I have with the visa waiver program. So they are listening and working with us in that aspect, but just know that I have the best team and they're working hard. They're working around the clock. The residents here that have allowed us to utilize their properties for makeshift command posts, businesses, we're out there, okay? And we're gonna take care of you. But please, we need the partnership with you guys. If something seems weird, call us. All right, but again, thanks for coming and I'll see you at Coffee with a Cop.
Yes, very welcome.